container management allows you to track inbound containers, the types, their contents, whether those containers are partial or full purchase order lines can be included. In transit, receiving can be applied with containers as well. And also you can track ports, seals, and the carriers involved in the container as well. So let's jump in and look at container management. So the first thing we'll do with container management is we'll of course go and create a container. So we're in Business Central. Just to give everybody a heads up, we're in Business Central in the cloud. Okay, I'm going to create a new container. Okay, I'm going to give the container a description. The container number is automatically assigned from a number series based on the setup. Okay, I'm going to say this is my spice order. I can pick the container type. The container type is set up within your setup here, so let's open a full list here. So you can set up different container types. I'm going to use my 20-foot dry container, which has a capacity of 13,000 pounds, and a cube length and width you can see here based on my setup. I can set up ocean containers or air-based containers in this container type. I'm going to select a port of loading of where the container is actually going to be loaded, and the port of discharge as Long Beach in the U.S. Right, at this time I'm going to select a vessel number, so I'm just going to key in a vessel number here and a voyage number. These are optional fields as you're setting up your container. And the posting date is important. You can't interact with the container or do any kind of posting without a posting date. So I'm going to fill that in here now, but it doesn't have to be filled in when you're setting up the container, just before you go and try to post. Okay, my location code is important here. I'm going to receive this into my US cold location. So this is a 3PL location I have set up in the system. The US cold location does not have advanced warehousing turned on, but you can use advanced warehousing locations on containers where you're going to have mandatory warehouse receiving. Right, you'll see here I've selected that I am going to in transit receive this container, and what that means is the container is going to be received into an on-water location, so that I have taken ownership of the inventory. I can start tracking and doing allocations, as well as I can start applying cost to that inventory while it's on the water. In transit receiving is optional. You can actually turn this off as a default inside of your container management setup. I have that turned on, so each container I create is going to be in transit receiving required as a default. Okay, I'm going to fill in my bill of lading number. A bill of lading number is like the posting date. It needs to be filled in before you do any kind of posting with the container, but doesn't have to be filled in when you create. But I'm just going to fill that in now since we're here on the container record. I also have options down here to fill in the shipping agent and also the shipping method. Am I expected an actual date as the container moves through its shipping process? I have dates here for one date for expected and actual dates and things like that. If I am using multiple carriers, meaning that there's a carrier that's maybe bringing the container to the port, and then I have an ocean-bound carrier, and then when it reaches Long Beach, then there's maybe a rail carrier, and then, for instance, another trucking carrier. So I may have multiple carriers that are involved and touch this container throughout its process. Then I can actually use the tracking information up here, and then in the header instead of the fields on the container, and I can use that to track the different carriers with the associated dates and actual and expected dates. Sorry, here in this tracking window. I also, back on the container, I have the ability to track seals here as well. So the seals that was originally applied to the container when it was actually loaded at the port. And then when that container arrives on the US, if that seal is cut for inspection by the FDA or Homeland Security and a new seal is put on, I can track what that new seal number is here as well. So multiple seal tracking on the container, as well as I can track comments as well if I have additional comments that I want to put in, in terms of, expected dates or, issues with the container or things like that. So now I've got my container set up. I do want to pull in the inventory or the purchase lines that I'm actually going to use on this container. So by selecting Get Purchase Lines, the system actually goes out and looks at all of my purchase orders for the location I've specified on the container and suggests those to me in this screen. It will only suggest purchase order lines that are released for that location and have availability to be added to this container. So meaning they're not already on another container or they're not already been fully received into the system. So I'm going to pick these two spice lines so I can select both of those at the same time. Right, and now the purchase order lines are brought into my container. I have my source quantities here. If I need to, and not all of that 200 pounds potentially is going to go on this container, maybe some of it's going to be split and go on a second container, I can edit this quantity and to 100 of the 200 source quantity, which would then free up that 100 to be added to another container at a later time. If I'm tracking lot numbers on these items, I can drill into the source quantity here, and then that will open up my item tracking lines where I can apply the lot number there. So I'm going to do that here because both of these items are lot tracked items. So I'm going to fill that in with today's date. Okay, and an expiration date of, let's put an expiration date in for the end of this year. Okay, and this is going to be 100 because I'm only shipping one in this container. I'm only including 100 of the possible 200. Okay, and then I'll do that for my second line here as well. And I am going to use the full quantity, the full 110 of the onion powder in this container as well. So I'm going to just go up to my item tracking lines again and fill in a lot and expiration date. This will work with non-lot tracked inventory and lot tracked as well. So depending on how the item is actually set up. Okay, and this is my full quantity of 110. Right, if you desire, those lot numbers can be set up at the purchase line before those are brought into the container, and then those will be used going forward. So I have my container set up. I can start filling in dates, and also I can select the shipping status here as well, which would show up in the container list. And this would just let me know. I can define some options here of where this container is in the process, whether it's at port, it's on the ocean, it's arrived, that sort of thing. Just make it easier for me to see where the container is in the process. So let's release this container. I can only do postings with it once that container is in a release status. And then from the posting window here, I can select posting, and then I want to ship the container, meaning that the container is actually shipped and on its way to us. Since I have in-transit receiving required, the system is actually going to receive it into the primary location, which is going to be that US cold location. It's going to immediately take it back out and move it into an in-transit location so that the inventory actually comes in and goes right back out again, so that it's actually in your in-transit location, so you can start actually tracking it and seeing where that is. Okay, we'll see now that the quantity shipped is filled in here on the lines for what has actually been shipped. Now the inventory is on the water. I can start actually doing allocations against those lot numbers on sales orders. I can start applying, freight, duty, docking charges, all of those kind of things. I can start applying those to the inventory as well. And when the container arrives at the port and I get notification that it has arrived or arrived at my location, I can go through and I can receive the container. Okay? And then what that has done is actually posted that in-transit purchase order, so now the container is actually complete. The inventory has now been received and it's back in my US cold location, which I'll show you in just one moment. So since we're finished with this container, we're on the container record. I'm just going to mark this container as complete. So it stays in my history. I can always track the information related to this container going forward, but it is actually marked as completely received, so I don't need to do anything else with it. I'm just going to quickly look at our item ledger entries. And we'll see that the container number and the bill of lading number are posted through to the item ledger entries and also your purchase receipt lines as well. And what that enables you to do is be able to apply freight charges and fuel surcharges, etc., against an entire container, meaning applying it against to all the purchase receipts on that container. Okay, so let's just filter down this last container that we actually, I'm just going to filter to value. Okay? And we'll see the entries that get created. There's a fair amount here because what we wanted to do with container management is utilize the documents that are existing in the system as it is. So we receive it in, we remove it out and put it into in-transit, and then when the container is received, we take it out of in-transit and put it back into the location, the U.S. Cold Sacramento. So we'll see here, this is our remaining quantity here. So as we move through all of these steps during its path through the system. And we have 2 items and 2 lot numbers here, so you'll see there's a few entries in here in the item ledger entry. Conversely, you'll see that the container number is available when you're going to, when you're on a purchase invoice and you get receipt lines, you'll see the container number is there as well as the bill of lading. And if you're actually doing a purchase invoice with a item charge and you use the get receipt lines as well, you'll see the container number and bill of lading number is there as well for you to apply those charges, as I mentioned, like fuel surcharges and freight. So that's container management. If you're interested in how container management can help your business, reach out to us at info@ternpoint.solutions. Thank you.